Skip, do you want to go ahead and swear those of us that need to be sworn in prior to, as long as David's not here and you can use the time usefully?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have news from the King County Auditors and Elections Division. They have notified the Public Hospital District number 4 of King County that Daryl Norris was elected to the office of Commissioner position number 2 by a majority votes. And that is on now official records of the King County on file, and the office is for a 6-year term. And shortly I will have you take the oath of office so that you may conduct business. I've also been informed that Kevin J. Howley was elected to the office of Public Hospital District number 4, Commissioner position number 5, as appearing in the official records, now on file, and that is in the office for an unexpired 2-year term. And further, I have been informed by the Auditor's Office and Elections Divisions of King County that Commissioner for Public Hospital District number 4, Jen Carter, who's already been sworn in, I'm going to swear her in again, this will be a double swearing for her. Hospital District number 4, Commissioner position number 4, on file and on record with King County for an office for a 6-year term. So with that, I would like those 3 individuals as previously identified to please rise and raise their right hands. And would you please repeat after me? First, your name. I, and state your name.
I, Jen Carter,
Having duly been elected,
having duly been elected,
do solemnly swear or affirm
Do
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and the laws of the state of Washington
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully
And I will
and will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
perform and discharge
perform and discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Public Hospital District number 4
of Public Hospital Number 4
according to the laws
according to the laws
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
Based on that oath, you are now sworn in. You may conduct business, and congratulations. I'm going to give you each an oath that you will sign, and we will send over to King County. You will be able to keep the nice blue certificate, which underneath you will find from King County the actual certificate. Of course.
Like the county wants me signing these in purple.
I wouldn't send both in, that really confusing.
Thank you.
So I'm going to retrieve your signed and notarized oaths of office. Madam President, you'll need to sign that, make that official. And you get to keep the nice fancy certificate there from King County. Having been duly sworn, taking your oaths of office, you may now conduct business as elected commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, that's done. I call to order on this Thursday, January 9th, 2020, at 6:42. The Public Hospital District number 4 Board of Commissioners regular meeting is January 9th, 2020 at 6:42. May we have the, let's have the flag salute, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
President Norris,
Here.
Vice President Karen.
Here.
Secretary Spikers.
Absent, have not heard from you.
Commissioner Carter.
Here.
Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second it.
Are there any changes or anything you want to add to that? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that is approved. Election of officers. And I believe our clerk will help with this. Do you just take over at this point? I thought so. Okay, it's yours.
Thank you, President Morris. As the clerk to the board, I am duty bound in the nomination and election of the president of the board. These duties are outlined in Article 2, Section 2 of your bylaws. Your bylaws provide that the current vice president, Emma Herron, is nominated for the position of the president of the board. I will remind the board that nominations do not require a second, and commissioners may nominate themselves. Having acknowledged the nomination of Vice President Herron, I now open and call for any other nominations for the office of president. Are there any nominations for the office of president of the board? Not hearing any, the nominations are now closed. The voting will now take place in the order of the nominations being made, of which there's only one, obviously. Commissioners will vote by roll call. If a nominee receives a majority vote, which is 3 affirmative votes, that nominee is elected as your president. So I will now do that roll call vote. Commissioner Norris.
Yes.
Commissioner Herron.
Yes.
Commissioner Carter.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
Right, thank you. Having received the required 3 affirmative votes of the board, Commissioner Herron, you are elected as the board president, and we turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you. Would you like to change positions?
Madam President, if I might, why
Yes.
don't we wait till the other elections are done? Then
Okay.
we can do the changing of the positions only once.
That sounds like a great idea. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to open the nominations for, I'll start with vice president and then the secretary. Do I hear any nominations for vice president?
I nominate myself for vice president.
I nominate Dario Norris for vice president.
I would, no, actually, procedurally, we have 2,
Yeah.
and so are we
We're not
done now? Now we do our votes?
tiebreaker.
No, actually, you continue to do that until there are no more nominations. And at that time, then, the president closes the nominations, and you follow the same procedure that your clerk just did. And you would call it in the name that they were nominated, and once a person receives 3 affirmative votes, that person is elected. So the president now serving, Ms. Herron, President Herron, if you don't hear any more nominations, you close the nominations.
Do I hear any more nominations?
And you close it.
I now close the nominations.
And now you call for the vote, roll call vote. You can use the assistance of your clerk if you'd like, as to those nominations in the order they were nominated. And that would be Commissioner Carter and then Commissioner Norris. Just ask your clerk to call the roll.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
All right, Commissioner Norris.
You're voting on the first nominee, and there must be 3 affirmative votes. If not, you go to the next nominee, and if not, then you start over again.
And Jen would have been the first.
The
nominee.
first.
She is the first
Commissioner
nominee. You're
Carter.
voting on Commissioner Carter.
No.
Commissioner Norris. Commissioner Herron.
No.
Commissioner Carter.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
You now move to the next nominee because there was not 3 affirmative votes. And so the next nominee is Commissioner Norris. And the clerk would call the roll again.
Okay. Commissioner Norris.
Is this my vote again?
This is to
This is
vote.
your vote for this nominee.
Yeah, okay.
That's not me.
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Herron,
Yes.
Commissioner Carter,
No.
Commissioner Howley.
No.
You now then would open up the nominations again because you did not have a nominee receive 3 affirmative votes. So the president would then call for nominations again, through opening the floor for nominations for vice president.
So there is no tiebreaker at all.
There is no tiebreaker, though
Not this-
unfortunately your bylaws don't allow for it. They
I
say
know,
just do it
that's,
again.
yeah, that's a good one for.
So you open it up for nominations
Open up the
again.
nomination again for vice president. Any nominations?
Madam President, you need to be acknowledged, Commissioner Carter. I don't think she saw
I'm
it.
sorry, yes.
I nominate myself.
Okay. I nominate for vice president Daryl Norris.
We go stalemate for,
You could.
can we postpone the vote?
There's no provision within your bylaws to postpone the voting.
We don't have any. That makes, we have to look at
You-
the bylaws
You'll
next
continue
time.
to do this according to the bylaws until someone gets 3 affirmative
Yeah.
votes.
Or
Have we reached out to
Or you can
Commissioner
decide.
Spiders yet? Is he,
Should we reach out?
Yeah, right
Okay.
now.
That'd be good, that's good, thank you, yeah,
I haven't heard from him. Usually-
thank you. And CEO,
Feels wrong.
this is kind of acting
Yeah, I know.
Commissioner Speckers. That would be a tight weekend.
One wants to be the secretary. You don't have to do that.
Specifically, Madam President, the bylaws do read, no further votes will be taken on the remaining nominees. If none of the nominees receive a majority vote, the clerk will call for nominations again and repeat the process until a single candidate receives a majority vote.
Yes,
And the president then is doing the same process for the vice president, you do the same for the secretary. So at this point, you have 2 nominees again,
yes.
and you must then vote again.
Call for the vote.
And you'll have your clerk take the vote for the first
All
nominee.
right, please.
First nominee was Jen Carter.
Would you please call the vote?
Commissioner Norris,
No,
Commissioner Herron,
Not for you? You're not voting for yourself?
it wasn't for me, it was
this is
for
a vote
Jim.
on.
Oh, I'm
For
sorry.
the first nominee, which was Commissioner Carter.
No?
Commissioner Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Howley,
yes.
Again, not receiving 3 affirmative votes, you'll move on to the second nominee. The second nominee for vice president is Commissioner Norris.
I open the nomination again for,
You know, you'd open up the vote.
no, that's,
She's already been nominated.
all right.
So
Open the vote.
clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Norris,
No. For me or for Jen?
this is for you.
For you now.
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Herron,
Yes.
yes. Commissioner Carter,
No.
Commissioner Howley.
No.
Not receiving affirmative 3 votes, a majority, then
Wow.
the nominations will then be opened again. And so, Madam President, you need to open the nominations for vice president again.
Is there opportunity
Commissioner
for,
Speckers hasn't responded.
Madam President?
Yes.
Is it, can we open this up for a little discussion perhaps? Is that possible?
Yes.
It's not on bylaws, but I think it is.
The bylaws don't
advisable.
preclude discussion, and right now, there's no
Yeah.
nominees. And
Right.
the president, at her discretion, could open it for discussion.
Yes, I'd like to open it for discussion.
Very good. And as far as clarifications of roles, the acting secretary of the board duties are what?
The secretary or the vice president?
The secretary.
The secretary's duties shall prepare and cause to be prepared minutes of all regular and special meetings of the board, sign the same, shall keep or cause them to be kept in a proper book for that purpose. Such records will be open to the public. In the absence of the president, the vice president shall preside at the board meetings. That's what's listed under section 2.2 of your bylaws as to the duties of the secretary.
Any other?
My thought would be is that either Dario or Jen would
We need to discuss.
have a discussion amongst themselves and make a decision as to what, because we're in the impasse, we're
Yeah.
spending here all evening.
Would both candidates for vice president discuss this among themselves? If you do, would you be able to step outside to discuss this? Rather
No.
than in the open?
No, this is an open public meeting. You
I'm
can't
sorry,
step outside to
apologize.
negotiate
Simply
arrangements.
discuss, or simply discuss.
Okay, well, let's discuss. And I'd like to recognize Dario to say a few words as to why.
As to why.
President, I want to be, I'm the vice president for it, and that would go for you as well, Commissioner Parker.
Boy, I guess because I've had experience here doing this, I've been in the community a long time, including with the network, Snoqualmie Valley Community Network. I helped with baseball, or the soccer fields in Preston, and I have a heart passion for this community. After living here 40-some years, 45 years, and watching us go from NALMS to one hospital building to this hospital building. I think I have a good background in what the community wants and about where we live, and I'm connected to the community.
And I can explain my rationale. The rationale for my vote for Commissioner Norris is that one of my main objective, because I know that we're going to be moving on, working towards community population health, and that is something that Commissioner Norris and I have discussed so many times, and we are looking forward to working with a community that we've lived here for many years, and we know this community very well. And that doesn't discount with Commissioner Parker. I know you will do well. Oh, Carter, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Tom Parker, Commissioner Carter. I'm not discounting that you don't know this community, but I believe that because of the major task that is embedded for our district, we really need to be very visible and and I know you are doing your best to do the same. And so that's one of my rationale for voting for Commissioner Norris, to continue that legacy of working together and making sure that we make it happen, to deliver all the quality of health and deliver the system that needs to be, to produce positive results. Thank you.
So I wanted to run for vice president, but before I do that, I want to thank Commissioner Norris for her service to the community and the service to this board. You've been on this board a long time and you have a lot of institutional knowledge, and it's very, very clear to everyone that your heart is in it more than anything else, and that you are dedicated, and that you love your community, and that you've been very active in your community for a long time. You are just finishing up a term as president, and I joined this board as someone that's newer in the community, that's right. And I would like to bring some of that newer energy and perhaps fresher perspectives to the office of vice president, hoping that one day I could be president of the board. I have been in healthcare technology innovation for my entire career, for 20 years. And we are in a dramatic period of change in this hospital right now. And I do hospital innovation for a living. I feel that I have a lot to contribute. I would like a term. Also, sorry, 2 things I forgot to add. I'm now an active member of the Chamber of Commerce. I show up at all of those meetings. I can bring all of that back now if you're talking about community visibility. And also, we brought the hospital to the Boy Scout troop. And that was a connection that I was able to help facilitate. I am a member of this community, perhaps the younger members of this community, but that's, I think the people we're trying to tap into are the younger families and the students, and maybe the young athletes that are gonna need, help with injuries and such. That's a community that I'm an active part of, and a community that I've already shown results in the 6 months, 4 months, however long I've been involved here. That's already happened. So, I would like to continue to do that.
Commissioner Howley?
Thank you. My perspective is, I like the rotation of the board, the different positions. And just to clarify, Ariel, you've been president, you've been other seats as well, vice president, secretary? No, president. Boom. Okay. And Jen, I don't know if you've been any board or any of the officer positions?
No.
Okay. I think it's healthy for the board to rotate positions, and that's simply non-biased at all, other than to say that. I think it's healthy in that context. I, for 9 years, served on every committee there was in the hospital district. And I think when I left, I was vice president, if I remember correctly. My perspective was simply fresh blood, fresh perspective. I think the will of all of you. It's a shame that Mr. Spikers is not here this evening. Because what I was hoping was that one of these two fine ladies would suggest that, well, I'll be the secretary, or that comes up next, and you have to go in faith, I guess, but one of you would take that position and one would be vice president. But that was my perspective, but anyway, that's my 2 cents.
For everyone's sake, we got news that Commissioner Spikers is on his way, is coming. So that would hopefully,
He said something in 15 minutes, he was feeling bad.
he forgot about it.
No.
Oh.
He says, I was not feeling well, I laid down, and next thing I knew it was 6:45. I'll be there in about
So 15 minutes, how do we handle this council?
But
Well,
he'll be here at 7.
I can only advise you what is occurring. Someone could take a motion to take a recess for a period of time. That's a non-debatable motion. You would just vote on it, whether you want to stand in recess for 10 or 15
Is
minutes.
there a motion to take a recess?
Can we instead take a motion to move on to the next item on the agenda?
No.
You're on this item now. I guess you could table this and bring it back off the table. You'd be without a vice president, and if you tabled it, you could move on to the next agenda item.
I'd like to make a motion to table this portion of the agenda until Commissioner Spikers comes and move on to whatever's next, and then come back to it.
I would like,
Doesn't need to be,
Well, yeah, if you're going to table it and move on to the agenda and come back
Don't need
later
a
in the
second.
meeting,
don't need a
the
second.
next, I'm looking at the next item, that would be committee appointments on your agenda. And I'm not sure you'd want to move to
Yeah.
committee appointments
That's
until you know who your officers are, but you could. The president makes those committee appointments, and you do have a president now.
Okay.
I'd like to withdraw that motion and make a new motion. Is that okay, Madam President?
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this item on the agenda, that we also table the committee appointments and move on to the communications portion of the agenda until Commissioner Spikers comes back, then we'll go back.
There is a motion, we need a second.
I'd second that.
Any discussion? Further discussion? Should we table election of vice president and committee appointments? I'd like to call the vote. Madam Clerk, would you please?
Well, you wouldn't need a roll call, you could just ask
No?
all those in favor.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. Yep.
okay.
All right. we will
And you're
take
now
that
on
as-
communications. And that would be you first. Madam President.
Okay, my communications. Really, I don't have a preliminary. All I wanted to share with you that January 17th, this is my communication, just to let everyone be aware of it, because there might be a few changes, of course, but we were discussing scheduling. So I think when we were in medical committee, we'll talk about it. So I wanted to let everyone know that I'll be away out of the country from January 17th through January 30th on a medical mission to the Philippines. And then on February 1st, from Manila, I'm flying to go from Manila to Seoul. I fly to Manila to Seoul to attend a World Peace Summit. And that is
From the 1st to the...
1st to the 8th. I'll be back, 1st to the 7th, I'll be back, yeah.
So give the
So-
dates again from when to when?
January 17th to the 30th is the Philippine
Okay.
mission, medical mission, and then from February 1st to the 7th is the World Peace Summit that I will be attending. And there are 3,000 from all over the world, parliamentarians, prime ministers, head of states that will be attending part of this summit. And the U.S. is sending 300 delegates. So it'll be a very interesting summit, especially in the condition where our country is right now. I think it's very critical that we hear further developments on how we can achieve peace for the world, the global thing. So that's my communication. Other than that, I don't have anything. Thank you. And now I want a communication from our superintendent report.
Right, you have a written report which has bullet points on it in your packet that I'll read through it and add some additional commentary. So a Happy New Year to start off with. 2020, as I sit and think about it, I think is really going to be a monumental year for us. We just think about what's already in front of us. We know that affiliation is coming about. We're going to have full implementation of new service lines that have created a lot of excitement within the organization that were launched in 2019, but they're still definitely in early growth phase, so we'll see them come to full fruition. And there may possibly be some implementation of some other new service lines that are still in their early construction and development phase, so more to come on that. So again, really looking forward to what I think will be just another exciting and a year possibly full of firsts. We did receive a thank you note this month. I try and bring those to you. This one is from the Snoqualmie Valley Rotary. It's brief. Thank you so much for participating in our Snoqualmie Valley Rotary Coat Drive. With your help, we were able to join with the Kiwanis Toy Drive and assist over 400 families, provide a wonderful holiday for their children and themselves. We appreciate your partnership in this project so much and hope to have you join us again next year. So that was from Nancy Whitaker, which many of you know.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But
Is it a Kiwanis or the Valley Rotary?
the gift was from Rotary.
Oh, I see.
They joined with
Oh,
Kiwanis, yeah, for some of the activities. Yeah. And just as a reminder, one of the
I know
things we did
Nancy's-
over the holidays was constructed the cards that were sent out to quite a few of our seniors, our patients who are seniors and living alone.
Nice.
So that was a project we had as part of our Chamber of Commerce open house event in December. Affiliation update, as you all well know, we didn't have our work study this afternoon because we didn't have anything really to go over that was new. But we did have the messages that we had constructed from the December work study. Those have been delivered to Overlake and to their legal counsel, and they seem to have been well received. So now we're just waiting for a revised version of the agreement. So we'll join back together as soon as that's in hand and keep this moving forward. Because I had kind of a light agenda tonight as far as my report, I wanted to give you an update on EHN, Eastside Health Network. So that's the clinically integrated network that we're a part of that involves almost all, a huge majority of the clinicians on the east side. Through the 405 corridor and out to us. So 2019 for EHN really had some significant growth. So they are now at 58,000 covered lives within the clinically integrated network, and quite a few incentive contracts that live under that umbrella as well. So 4 of them are Med Advantage, so Medicare Advantage products. There is the Microsoft Health Connect product, which is a highly innovative product that is direct to the employer. And so that's generating a lot of excitement, and quite a few other companies on the east side are interested in setting the same thing up. So again, and us being a bedroom community for a lot of the businesses on the east side, that's why we're so sensitive to this. And then most of the other major commercial carriers also have incentive contracts that work through EHN. To date, the Cigna contract is the one that's been the most lucrative as far as payouts so far, and at the end of the first year of the contract, there are already dollars coming in. So the group successes, so the measurement of performance and performances is quality measures as well as cost effectiveness. And so we've been exceeding, as a group, exceeding the market by about 4% and 100% score on all of our quality measures. So that resulted in a 250% increase in our patient management fees, and that's a fee that comes to us on a monthly basis based on the number of lives that are covered within our network. And then there's expected to be additional payout in the next couple of months for performance over the year. And so these have been ongoing conversations that we've had as a group dating back quite a while, 5 years or more, that we've been talking about these type of approaches, doing incentive contracts, entering into risk contracts. EHN really is unsure when they're ready to enter into risk contracts, but that's next. That's how you mature, is going into that next. So very much a part of that. So moving on to the next, every year we do an annual report, and so the 2019 annual report, I'll begin constructing that later this month with a goal to have that done by the end of February. As you'll recall from having that report provided to you in years past, that is one of the requirements that's of a critical access hospital, is you produce an annual report. So just really a great opportunity to look at the year in total, look at it in a lot of different perspectives, document how experiences and performances in the year informs the year to come, and an opportunity to really look at the touch points with the community over the year. So you'll get a copy of that when it's done. And then from a clinical perspective, I really do want to highlight that our community, like the rest of the country and the rest of our state, are really suffering from the current influenza outbreak. As here Emma in our midst can talk about just coming over the illness. Sounds like Dave's coming in, feeling horribly, but coming in anyway. So our community and some of our staff are also continuing to experience that. So we really are continuing to focus on getting those who are unimmunized immunized. This is unlikely to be the only wave of influenza that we experience. It tends to come later as well. We'll see what happens. We're using our social media platforms as a way to remind everybody to come in and get their flu vaccines, and we contributed to an article in Living Snoqualmie.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, just to get the word out. The most recent report out is from week 52, so that's how the reports are done, so that very last week of December. And at that point in time, there's been 19 deaths in the state of Washington directly attributable to influenza, and 2 of those were children. So again, just really calling out the importance of this for something that is so preventable. So our positivity rate for our testing right now is at 15.4%. So it means 15% of all those that we test are turning out to be positive. The state reference point is about 20%. So it just means we're like everybody else, a little better, but we're like everybody else. So I will leave you with that.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions on our superintendent's report? All right, hearing none, we move on to our board education. I'd like to call on our legal counsel.
Thank you, Madam President, and congratulations,
Thank you.
and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
As we step back in time to one of the early provisions within Robert's Rules, they talk about rules of an assembly or organization,
Thank you.
which you are experiencing tonight as you work through your new officers and your new appointments to chairs. So what Robert said about this is that an organized society requires certain rules to establish its basic structure and manner of operation. You all know that. In addition, there is a need for formally adopted rules and procedures arising in any assembly, principally because there may be a disagreement or a lack of understanding as to what is parliamentary law regarding points that can affect the outcome of substantive issues. Experience has shown that some of the rules of a society should be made more difficult to change or suspend. And in fact, if you wanted to change your bylaws tonight, you could not, because your bylaws specifically say under Article 9, they must be introduced at one meeting, and then voted upon at the next meeting. Your rules of procedure could be changed tonight, though, because they can be changed at any time by a majority vote of the board. So Roberts was concerned about this. He further wrote and said, within this framework, under the general parliamentary law, an assembly or society is free to adopt any rules it may wish, even rules that deviate from parliamentary law, provided that in the procedure of adopting them, it conforms to parliamentary law or its own existing rules. So that's along the lines of, you can't make it up as you go along. You have to follow the rules that exist, or change the rules that exist, so that you can then make it up. The only limitations upon the rules that such a body can thus adopt arise from the rule of a parent body. You don't have a national society, but you do have state laws. Those are called RCWs, Revised Code of Washington. So there's certain things you could not do if you wanted to, because the RCWs require you to do certain things. So the various kinds of rules which a society may formally adopt include a corporate charter, constitution, and your bylaws. You've adopted your bylaws. In fact, you are to review your bylaws according to your bylaws every 2 years. And that will be coming up again this coming year. Unfortunately, somebody's going to be appointed to the bylaws committee. Don't all look down now. It includes also a standard of work on parliamentary law adopted. You have adopted in your bylaws to use Robert's Rules of Order, but to use them informally. That you only need to use those stringently if so desired. And then also any special rules of order. And you do, and have adopted last year, actually in December 2018, rules of procedure. And you did not have those before, and your bylaws committee thought those would be appropriate. Your rules of procedures deal really with how the meetings are going to be run. And later this evening, you'll also experience that when we play musical chairs, because there is a rule of procedure called seating of commissioners. And that's a specific item and article as to how you must be seated according to the rules of procedure. But if you wanted to, you could change that tonight. I'm not suggesting that you do that, because we are going to implement what has been. So, in matters not governed by any adopted rule, a society may be guided by established custom, as discussed below. Well, I try to keep this to 5 minutes, and that was my directive when I started this 3 years ago. So I will not discuss what's below, because there is nothing below this evening. You'll have to wait until the next meeting. But what it does is it opens up the door to custom. If you've had a practice or a precedent or a way of doing certain things, and it doesn't violate any other bylaw or rules, you can follow your customs. Yes, Madam President.
Where does caucus comes in? Like when I ask if the two candidates could maybe caucus out there, but where does it come into this rules and
Rules of
assembly?
procedure?
And the procedure.
Well, during a
Where does it
recess, you could take a recess and individuals could go talk, but during a meeting, you would not want to suggest that two individuals do, in essence, horse trading or further discussion or communicating. It doesn't appear to be transparent.
I see.
It would appear to the public then that you're making some decisions behind closed doors or out of the face of the public. So the caucusing might be if you really need time to discuss or think further, table it, recess it, move it to another meeting where you need more time to consider it. So we don't actually have a caucus provision within your bylaws or rules. I'll do some more research on the parliamentary rules as to whether you could caucus or not, though.
Yeah, and the bigger body, the Congress and all that, they use that.
They go into
that
recess
system, that-
to discuss,
To discuss.
and they
and
bring in the
caucus.
majority and minority whips
Right.
and come back with certain, suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Now we move into our consent agenda. Approval of minutes. Our work study, December 9, 2019. Our regular meeting, December 19, 2019. That was rescheduled from December 12. And number 2 is physician credentialing. Do I hear a motion to consent agenda?
I would make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay, and discussion? Okay, the consent agenda for 1 and 2 has been. Now I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. I'd like to acknowledge Commissioner Spikers. I know we're both ill here. for his presence. And we will now resume, now that the consent agenda has been voted on. Now we will resume on the two table topics that we need to continue. That is the election of vice president and the committee appointments, just to keep you
Okay, thank you.
abreast.
I know what it's like to be old now because you fall asleep while you're in a chair.
Nothing wrong with that.
I do something like
I
that.
don't have the flu or anything like it, just a little wore down and cold.
It happens to the best of us.
I'll just take a 20 wink now, you know.
Yeah, that's all, yeah, I must have needed it, so, touche.
Your excuse. Okay, to keep you abreast, that's where we are. These
Okay.
are the particulars.
All right, thank you.
That is the election of vice president. So far, it's a tie. So it would be the tiebreakers. Should we start for the nomination?
You start over
again?
again, the process being utilized, and Secretary Spikers, I'll inform you that we did hold the election for president. Commissioner Herron is now your new president. She was elected unanimously. And now she has opened up the nominations for vice president. And we have a specific process where she will ask for all nominations. No second is required. After all nominations have been made, in the order that they were nominated, the clerk will call the roll, and then we will go through that. Once one of the nominees receives 3 affirmative votes, the election is over. So with that, Madam President, I'll turn it back over to you so you can open up nominations.
Okay. The nomination is open for vice president. I nominate Daryl Norris for vice president.
Do we have a second? Is that what you want?
There are no seconds are required.
Okay, all right.
You can nominate yourself, and you can.
Okay.
I'll nominate Jan Carter.
Okay, do I hear any more nominations for vice president? Mr. Spikers, you can nominate. So,
No, I don't want to be. I have no nominations, no.
okay, hearing none, the nominations is closed. Madam Clerk, please call for the vote.
Commissioner Norris?
Yes.
This is for.
Yes, the first
And for
nominee is
Jan-
being called for a roll call vote for the first nominee,
Okay, this is for, yes,
Jan.
Commissioner
for
Norris.
Daryl Norris.
Okay, for different.
Commissioner Herron?
Yes.
Commissioner Spikers?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
No.
Commissioner Howley?
No.
So the nominee has received 3 affirmative votes, and with 3 affirmative votes, the vice president position is now filled. Now, Madam President, you would move on to the position of secretary.
Okay, I move on to open the next position. It's for secretary. Do I hear any nomination?
I nominate Jan Carter.
I'd like to decline the nomination.
I will nominate David.
Mr. Spikers can't serve because your bylaws now preclude officers from serving more than 2 consecutive terms.
Oh, and you're 2 years, okay, okay. Then I guess,
Sure.
Okay. I nominate Kevin Howley.
yeah.
Are there any more nominations? I guess there isn't. I now close the nomination. Madam Clerk, would you please call
Commissioner
for the
Norris?
vote?
Howley?
Commissioner Herron?
Yes.
Commissioner Spikers?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Commissioner Howley?
Yes.
Madam President, 3 affirmative votes have been achieved for the position of secretary, so you now have new officers. Based on that, officers now being in their positions, I turn to the rules of procedure and inform you that the seating of commissioners shall be as follows, in the following order. The board president, the vice president, the secretary, the commissioner with the most seniority, and then the commissioner with the least seniority. The commissioner with the most seniority may elect to yield and choose to have the member with less seniority be seated after the secretary. This shall be the preference and prerogative of the senior commissioner who is not a board officer. So at this time, now you do play musical chairs, and you would seat yourself. Commissioner Herron as president, Madam President, vice president would be Commissioner Daryl Norris, and secretary, Commissioner Howley, you would move over where Commissioner Spikers is, and Commissioner Spikers, you would slide down one, but since you are the most senior, you have the prerogative of either sitting there or moving to the end.
It doesn't bother, whichever you like. You know.
Let's just slide down.
If you want to stay there, I can go wherever you want to move.
Yeah, it is reasonable.
Okay.
All right. Okay. That's fine.
So,
No, I was asking.
Madam Clerk, the minutes just need to reflect that the senior commissioner who is not an officer, Commissioner Spikers, has chosen to exercise his prerogative to not follow the order, and he can be seated at the end. So when you do your roll call and when you seat, this is where you're to be seated now, according to your rules of procedures that were adopted in December 2018.
Okay.
All
Are we
right.
all set? Is everybody all stabilized?
I don't know if we're stabilized, but we're set.
That's for everybody, that's.
Okay, now we can move on to the next item that we tabled. It's the committee appointments. And we have 3 main committees according to our bylaws and 2 subset committees. So the 3 main committees is finance, medical, and facilities. Subset committee, the bylaws and quality. Bylaws, the quality meets quarterly, the 3 main committees meets monthly or as needed. The bylaws could be monthly or could be quarterly. We haven't set any on the bylaws, that's the bylaws committee. Does not have any set meeting for it. Okay, and this is how, and please let me know, for the medical committee and quality, I have Emma, the president, Commissioner Herron, and Commissioner Norris. For the finance and the bylaws, I'm sorry, let me just start with, yeah. For medical committee, Commissioner Norris and Commissioner Herron. For finance would be Commissioner Spikers and Commissioner Herron. Facilities, Commissioner Carter and Commissioner Howley. Quality, Commissioner Norris and Commissioner Carter. Bylaws, Commissioner Spikers and Commissioner Howley. Did I get everybody? So that's 2 for each committee that we have. Okay, any other discussion on it? For appointments, as chair,
So could I ask that the clerk read each of our names and tell us which committees we're on?
For committee appointments?
Yes, please.
For finance, it's Commissioner Spikers and Commissioner Herron. Medical, Commissioner Herron and Commissioner Norris. For facilities, it's Commissioner Carter and Commissioner Howley. For quality, it's Commissioner Norris and Commissioner Carter. And bylaws, it's Commissioner Spikers and Commissioner Howley.
okay. Do I need to have a motion to approve or?
No, they're appointments.
Their appointments.
Yeah.
Then you need to appoint the chairs.
For finance, I would like to appoint Commissioner Spikers. For medical, I'd like to appoint Commissioner Norris. For quality, I'd like to appoint Commissioner Carter. For facilities, I'd like to appoint Kevin Howley. And for bylaws, I would like to appoint Commissioner Spikers. Okay.
Shall we move on? We can move on now to our next item on the agenda, the committee reports. Finance Committee. Commissioner Spikers?
So do we go through the consent agenda?
Yes.
No, okay, all right, great. Apologize again. I have some notes. We did lose some money this month, more than projected, but there's some reason behind that, or some reasons, I should say. You know, especially our outpatient, because it looks like we're down there, and we had 3 holidays, which is basically a 10% fewer days for the,
David, could you speak a little louder? We don't have mics, so we can,
oh, okay, I can do that.
just a little bit, please.
There were 3 holidays in November, and that reduced the number of days operating by 10% in November. Normally we have 30 days, which is a shorter month. Remember, if you recall, the 30-day months we project to be right around even or below. The 31-day months, we usually make money because we have operating 1 more day. So when we combine a 30-day month with 3 holidays, Veterans Day and the Thanksgiving week, we end up with fewer days by about 10%. I was looking at the sleep clinic, and we asked some questions about some of the actual expenses that were going on with the sleep clinic, because I was kind of concerned. I said I thought it was only $5,000, but what's happening is there is a consulting company that gathers all of the patients, and they send a tech out, and we split the fees 60-40, 60 to the hospital, 60% to the hospital, 40% to the consulting company. So they're more or less artificial costs because we're kind of sharing the fees, so to speak. There is, and I did follow up, there is a 19% margin on the sleep study, so it's a really good line. It's a very, very good line. And that's what I thought. We were making good money on that anyway. Looking through a couple of your notes on AR was up. I voiced my concerns, and it's sort of the 3-strike rule right now with HRG, who is our company that does who we work with for accounts receivable. And we've had a long relationship with HRG, probably at least, I'm thinking, well, there was a period of time we did in-house before Steve was here. So it's been at least 10, 12 years, probably. And
We had one HRG employee
That's
15
right.
years ago that was in-house. And
Right.
then we moved to them.
And there was a reason why we went back, yeah.
Yeah.
So, they're not doing so well. So, there are some issues, and they actually have a meeting, so they had a meeting with them just before our finance meeting. And as you all know, and we've talked about this in other board meetings, is if you have a late or a long, lengthy AR, you're going to have less cash every month available. And we're not in any trouble as far as cash flow or right now or anything like that. We're all meeting all of our bond requirements. But you might also know that we are investing any of our cash in very safe plans, interest rate plans to make a little money. I think we make about $30,000 a year on our cash. So if we don't have the money sitting there, we can't make money on them. And that's kind of, it might be a few $1,000 the whole year, but it's a few $1,000s we could devote to a piece of equipment or something we need at the hospital. So we are going to be investigating that a little bit further and see what they can come up with. My understanding is that rates are going to be changing probably. There'll be some more incentives, I should say, for them, meaning higher levels to get to, like 53 is what we want for AR days, 53. That's a good number for us. And in the past board meetings we looked at each of our lines, our swing bed, our outpatient, and our clinics, and we analyzed how many days are we in AR in each one of these. And the Medicare Advantage plans, which we've been getting a lot more patients with those plans, take about 90 days turnaround to get the money. We get the same amount on Medicare, but it takes 90 days because there's more procedures. So we can't help that. There's nothing much we can do, I think, on that. But our outpatient procedures, when we're looking at the different payors, we've been looking at potentially allowing people to get access to our system to have a quicker turnaround. And we don't know if we want to do that because there's only so much money in that particular area in some of the private pays. That would it be worth potentially jeopardizing the intrusiveness of having them have access to our computers and all of our data and information? So, as you know, these days breaches are prevalent. Even the largest companies have them. And the more exposure you have, the more likely you're going to have issues like that. Even though we have a great IT department and we have got great firewalls and up to date with every potential precaution that we could have for protecting any of the private information that we keep. So these are all things we talk about every couple months in the finance committee meetings. There was, let's see here, I've got another couple notes I wanted to talk to. Since we were down in I started now, Patrick's gonna find out when we're way below our mark for the month on what we project. And I start looking at certain items in these little ledgers that we get. And fortunately, the main reason this month, and this is why I saved this for last, is because I want you to remember what happened. In the past, we've actually done cost reports, and we've been off as much as $2 million owed. And that can be an incredible hit that would affect our bond covenant if we had something like that, or it could really throw us way off for a bad curve. So we've been doing very frequent snapshots, I should say, of our cost reports. And we found that we were off by about, I can't remember, it was about 280,000.
Yeah, overall, it's about
In 10 months.
Yeah, in 10 months.
10
It's
months.
about a 300,000 swing that we had.
So, not too bad. That's only off by about, 30,000 or so for the 10 months per month. I can handle that. It's the reports that come back that we're off by $2.5 million, and we have to pay them back.
Yeah.
And they want their money, and we can't be late when you start getting finance charges and everything else. So, not bad. It's actually the best I've ever seen for predicting. For all the different payer mixes and all of the different expenses and everything that we go through, it makes me believe that our financials are finally getting on a smooth track to where you can, be much easier to predict things. So I'm thinking it's a good thing. It's not that bad of a thing. We're off by, 300,000. It could have been much, much worse. So that's what we did. We did that adjustment this month, and that's why you have the hit on the bottom line of about 200,000. So, so that's, we're hoping that, now I asked, that was my follow-up question, because I couldn't quite follow this, because, okay, so next year, are we gonna, because of our budget, we did the budget based on, the past year of expenses and how we looked at things, and so apparently this potential for 350,000 for the whole year, it could affect the budget a bit if we don't grow some more outpatient. So that could affect the budget a bit for next year. So we predicted, I thought 500,000
That's what was approved.
yeah, our budget was a positive 500,000 approval. So if we're off by 350, you might want to expect that we won't make 500,000 unless we go outpatient. We may only get 150 if everything remained equal with the same type of expenses and the same time of payers and the same type of things that we predicted. So, but just to let you know that we may not get to 500,000 next year. I just want to let everybody know ahead of time. But that's not, we're still looking at it in the black. So for the bottom line for the year, it's going to be awfully close whether we break even or not. Very close. December, did we have we had full census for December?
We were 22.
22, so
just a smidge, like 0.1 under census, so
Okay.
a tenth of a patient.
So it's going to be pretty close. We did have 31 days in December, so we have one extra day there. There was some early flu.
ER was up. So
ER,
Yes.
so that
Outpatient
there's a lot of ancillary services connected to ER. And so I'm just kind of giving you the stuff that you can understand as a board so that you know what's going on from the big picture. But if you have other questions in particular, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And with that, I've asked to approve the warrants for $2,829,839.52.
And I make a motion that we approve the warrants.
Any second?
I'll second if she doesn't. If no one does.
I second.
Oh, okay.
Are there any discussion? Hearing none, the federal warrants has been given.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
All right.
Next on the committee reports is the medical committee. Commissioner Carter, please.
Hey.
Walk.
Really?
All right. Sorry, I've got a handful of copies of the notes here. So, medical committee, we received the community health needs assessment, and we're going to go over that with the group at the end of the month, pending the affiliation definitive agreement. But if we are not ready to discuss that at that time, then we're going to talk about the community needs health assessment, which is in our hands. Dr. Whitcop already talked about flu. Please tell your loved ones, get their flu shots. There was a little bit less going on this month just due to the holidays community-wide. Okay. System-wide, we've got our MIPS and our meaningful use reporting season is coming up. Should be fine. We plan on meeting all of our requirements. There's been a lot in the news about medical device cybersecurity, and when you talk about a medical device, it's not your medical record. It's, you know, like your blood pressure monitor or your IV computer thing. We have intentionally decided to not connect those to the internet. They are not wireless. They're not plugged in, thus they cannot be hacked, just like Battlestar Galactica.
Can I address that a little bit?
Yeah.
The reason they're hacked is they go, what helps them to hack or what they're looking for is social security numbers. So, and that was an issue 2 or 3 years ago, and it seems to be coming up again. But it has to do that when you have patients, they have certain information on those machines, and that's what they're hacking for.
Because we're not using SSN for MRN.
No, for medical devices, they're usually hacking them for just
Malicious purposes.
malicious, yeah, they're just
It's
being.
malicious?
Yeah, because there's no
Yeah.
patient information, but it's a way to, so it could certainly be a way to undermine a business. You know, you wanted to disable somebody by having a negative outcome, but had a lot of publicity with it.
It's just kind of to show that they can't hack. Yeah. That's what they're doing.
That's unfortunate. That is
Yeah.
so unfortunate.
So at the department level, they'll be establishing some key performance indicators for 2020, just kind of formalizing some, just cultural goals that have been in place the whole time, but let's get them down on paper this time so we can measure them. Next, we are completing the transition to electronic prescribing for controlled substances. It was the retail pharmacies that weren't quite ready for that, but we are ready, and we will be doing that starting this quarter, next quarter?
So it's already in process.
It's in process,
Yeah.
awesome,
Yeah.
okay.
75%.
The annual submission of the nurse staffing plan has been submitted to the Department of Health. We are fully compliant. For average daily census for inpatient swing, the budget was 22.8, and as Patrick already said, we're just a skosh under that with 22.7 for the month of December. And then we've got a developing nurse practice committee in 2020, which is going to have representation from the entire spectrum of the nursing community here in the hospital, not just management and what have you. For emergency, we had 11.5 visits per day in December. That's a 10.8 year-to-date. We've transitioned to a new telestroke video platform. It's not a new provider, it's just the technical underneath that changed, and that went well. Also onboarding a new ED psych hold consult group. Previously we would have to wait hours and hours and hours to get someone to free up from Fairfax. Now we've got someone that's going to come that's a little bit more local when needed. We talked earlier about combining the swing bed intake, utilization, social work, they were scattered all over the building last year. They've been moved now to a single spot. They now have a single team name. We're calling them Patient Transition Services. Okay. 2 new reference lab sites were added, and working on ongoing optimization for the process as volumes have increased. We are enjoying great success with that program and just trying to adapt as we grow. At the clinics, we're trialing a program called Commonwell at the hospital clinic. Commonwell is kind of I'm not even going to read the notes for this one. Commonwell is kind of a central hub where local medical records from different facilities get sent. You'll log into Commonwell, you'll say, I have this patient, and they will pull the records for that patient from other facilities so that you get a single longitudinal record for that individual. We are also participating in the BRE Collaborative Behavioral Health Integration Grant Project. There's a handful of medical staff credentials that we would like to get approved, or that we approved as a committee, listed here. And for other education, we reviewed our charter, and I Are we gonna have a motion later in the agenda or something to approve the charter?
We can do that now.
I can do that
Yeah.
now? Ooh, well, if you folks will turn the page, you'll see we've got our new charter for the medical committee.
All the 4 doctors are from Harborview. Is that right? The Association from Provisional to Telemedicine.
Yes.
They're all from Harborview and they are all neurologists. So,
Stroke.
stroke neurologists. So it's 4. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Having just combed through this on Monday or Tuesday this week, I assure you there's nothing shocking in this charter for the medical committee of the board. And at this time, I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve the charter for the medical committee of the board.
I'll second.
Thanks. Madam President, we have a vote?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you.
No.
And then the question came up was for affiliation, are there certain clinical areas that we would like to inform Overlake and say, hey, fellas and ladies, we would like to make sure that when you come on board that we are going to emphasize these other areas where we can provide more value to the community. So we did some brainstorming ourselves, but also landed on the fact that we do have this new community health needs assessment, and that will be our North Star as we make recommendations for how to best serve our community. So once we crack that one open on the 22nd of January, we will have more concrete ideas for recommendations that we'd like to make.
Jen, is what year, is this the 2019? Did we do it in
Yes.
2019?
Yes.
So none of us have really seen it?
We haven't yet.
No, we haven't. Okay.
We are going to see it hopefully at the work study on the 22nd. We may not, because we may be doing the definitive agreement instead, in which case we'll see it hopefully in February. I'd like to see it. I know we all would.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could still see it, and, couldn't we? I mean.
Well, I think so.
Is it done? It is done according to our superintendent, yes.
Because it
Oh,
might
well,
help
we
with,
can-
with the affiliation process and
Exactly.
formulating,
We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
okay.
It's a good point.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Are there any
Okay.
more questions?
I do have one.
Yes.
What is a collaborative behavioral health integration grant? What is that all about?
I skipped over that because I can't answer that detailed question.
Well, I'm really interested because one of the things I thought that would be great is when we get into the swing of affiliation and in this contract, hopefully, we could have some grant writers, so I don't know. So
Yeah.
tell me what this is about.
So it is not fulfilling your hopes. So because we don't have the resources for grant writers just yet, but we do participate with others. And so we're involved in a grant right now that the collaborative has written. That's not the one that we're talking about right now, but we are involved with a collaborative grant. The BRE collaborative is DSHS, so the state Apple Health System. The BRE collaborative is really associated with them, and they do a lot of quality worker, quality leadership to move care towards transformation, towards higher quality. So the BRE collaborative did a lot of work with hip replacements, done a lot of work with cardiac replacement, and now they're leading in regard to behavioral health integration into primary care. So that's something that's been high on our agenda as well, and we've got a fair amount of work going in that direction. So to participate with the BRE Collaborative Grant, it positions us to have a lot of those resources brought in, and what we're really looking for are tools. So this grant is for the purpose of constructing and delivering tools that will allow you to accomplish some of the integration.
Okay.
So that's the motivation for our participation. So we don't get dollars, we just get tools.
Does Overlake understand, because they'll be managing a public hospital, that they could potentially get grants?
Absolutely.
And that's a base of potential funding? Because I don't think they do much of that right now, and I'm not sure if they might do it, but
They do some.
they may not qualify as much.
Yeah, they do participate in some grants, but not too many. I think mostly because it just doesn't percolate to the top as a primary source of funding for them. but no, they are actually in tune, and they do have a grant writer on their staff,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, I did ask that question.
President Herron,
Uh,
I just want to clarify, it says here in these notes that the next meeting is moved to February 11. When we met earlier this week, we were going to move it to February 4. Have you had different conversations that resulted in February 11?
No, I have
No,
not.
sorry,
We have
Is that just an error here?
that must be a correction to the minutes.
Okay. Well, in that case, we need to correct these minutes to reflect. President Herron, am I right about that? Because I'm not even going to be there, so it's up to you and
Please make sure
Commissioner
that
Vice
you,
President Norris.
yeah,
What?
please make sure that you get my attention and I can acknowledge you. Thank you.
President Herron,
If she's been,
please figure out when the meeting is going to be, because the
Sorry.
notes conflict.
For the next, which meeting are we talking about?
she's still in medical.
The
Oh,
medical
the medical
committee.
committee, that's what we did talk about. There's something to be discussed or because,
The minutes that are here.
Yes.
Needed to be corrected
Oh,
to
we did
reflect
that.
the decision that was made, that it says, we got the 11th here, but it's really the 4th
The
was
4th.
the decision that was made.
okay. All right.
Because that would accommodate your travel.
Yeah,
that's-
I
that's
think
what
that's
she
what, yeah. So we could reflect that correction then. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Okay, we can move on now to the Facilities Committee. Commissioner Norris?
Facilities Committee met on December 23rd. Maintenance issues, there were none reported. Facility usage, there's a list in front of you. Encompass, CarePoint Clinic, Snoqualmie Valley Rotary, Daisy Group, and Encompass Board Committee. Environment of Care, Emergency Management, working with Safety Committee in 2020. The risk assessment outcomes will be reported to the committee once they've been assessed. Fire safety management, last quarter, there were 2 fire drills, not 1 but 2, scheduled before the end of the year. Hazardous materials waste management, bioroom audit found chemo waste draining needed. Stericycle to deliver PowerPoint posters, and training was completed, it should be completed annually. Medical equipment management, Jan already talked about that they had addressed equipment that was out in the hall and stuff. Physical plant, reviewing the chiller repair needs to be done, and it will be done in 2020. This is an annual review of the heating and cooling system. Patient handling, no report. Managed safety management, no report. And security management, no report. Utilities management, still working on the power quality issues. Consultant has performed his analysis and concurs with the proposed recommended solutions to add a UPS to the CT equipment to protect the software.
Doesn't project the cost on that.
That's just what I was looking down at Patrick when you said that. Do we have an idea about?
I think it was about,
Karen is your contact for
Karen is
facilities.
this contact?
The current quote that we're working on is somewhere between 10 and 13,000.
Okay. The January Facilities Committee meeting will be rescheduled to Monday, February 3rd, 2020 at 8:30 a.m. due to scheduled conflicts. And then the next meeting will be Monday, February 3rd, and it's in the East-West Conference Room. Okay. Any questions?
All right, moving along, we're on the old business, introduction and discussion, none. New business, introduction and discussion, none. Oh, action required as noted. Yeah. So old business, again, introduction and discussion, there's none. New business, introduction, discussion, there's none. Public comment. Please limit comments to 3 minutes.
For the record, my name is Scott Scowcroft from West Seattle. Last month, I was pleased to see that Commissioner Pollard, I was pleased to see him leave without discord or rancor. Had you instead censured him, I'm confident that he would have been hurt and forever had a feeling of regret. And I know that this is something, Dario, that you didn't want to happen on your shift or on your watch. Such a positive farewell is also consistent with what I have observed as Dr. Whitcopp's managerial style when I was on staff at the hospital. Those were the magical days when the hospital was being turned around from one that was badly failing to the one that you know now, which is highly respected and known for its medical excellence. But Dr. Whitcomb didn't do this alone. She had help from the then CFO Don Gaylor and, of course, from Val, who then, just as now, guaranteed the smooth and professional operations of the administrative offices of the district. But there was one more person without whom none of this would have been possible. Working on behalf of and at the direction of the Dick Jones Commission, Roger McCollum was the true visionary. He was courageous and entrepreneurial, and were he to have continued, I'm confident that by now there would have already been a medical office building on campus, and who knows what else, and that the district very easily might be in a far stronger position to negotiate with Overlake for affiliation. That's all water under the bridge. He saw potentials and possibilities where others didn't, and Roger McCollum brought out the best in people. It was they, the medical staff, and the other staff, who were the ones who did the heavy lifting, and it was they, one after another, who praised Roger during his going away party for their personal and professional growth. And it was they who presented Roger with a framed picture of the new hospital with the caption, "The House That Roger Built." Well, it's too late for the old board to give a farewell, I believe, to Roger that he deserved. But with the passage of time, I hope the new board will be able to begin to recognize and acknowledge the positive contributions that he made. Maybe the best way to do this is to be bold and visionary yourself. Yes, give the keys of the hospital over to Overlake. They'll do a fine job in running the hospital. But then what? What are the potentials that the district can achieve in a post-SVH world? That is your challenge, and that is your opportunity. And because this may be the last time I am here on a regular basis, so I'm not gone forever, I have a request that these public comments be amended and put as part of the minutes for this meeting. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Scowcroft. Okay, we have action items to vote. I believe committee reports action required as noted. These are action items. We did vote on them already. Okay. Now, good for the good of the order, commissioner comments. Each commissioner shall have one comment period limited to 3 minutes. Commissioner Spikers?
I have one. I just want to tell the board that Patrick, in his first solo with the Finance Committee this week, I totally enjoyed working with him, and he certainly has his pulse, or he's sensed the pulse of this organization. He knows what's going on. And I did a couple of quick questions, intricate ones, and he came up with the answers right away. So I'm really going to be happy to work with him, and I'm sure, Kevin, you will too when you're on the committee.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Spikers. Commissioner Carter?
Thank you, President Herron. I just want to extend my congratulations to President Herron and
Thank
Vice
you.
President Norris and Secretary Cogley. I'd like to thank you for your willingness to take the role of Secretary. That was very nice of you. I also want to congratulate Steve and wish him well in his retirement, and thank you for sticking around to see us through the affiliation. And thank you, Commissioner Spikers, for that great report on Patrick's job in the Finance Committee. That's awesome. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Hungry.
Well, I would say it's an absolute honor to be here for my second meeting, and I enjoyed the political process and play here, I must say. That was an education, brief affirmation of due diligence, patience with everybody. And David, thank you for waking up. But no, I've always enjoyed the process. You can be on the menu or you can be making things happen here. So this is good. And Scott, I appreciate your words. But it's good to be here.
I am so excited we have
Commissioner Norris.
community assessment. I think that being able to go through that and see how we as a hospital can do things to reach out to our community, to make it a healthy community, I'm excited about being able to do that. And Jen, I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't know we'd gotten it yet, so thanks.
Thank you all. I appreciate your vote of confidence, and my hope and my goal is that we can all continue to work together in harmony. We can always agree to disagree, and hopefully it's always for the best interest of our hospital. The first thing I'd like to reinstate is resurrect is our Snoqualmie Valley Hospital Foundation. And that is something that is, of course, near and dear to all of us. So hopefully that we can be successful this time around. And I want to thank everybody. Thank you for your service. CFO, outgoing CFO, Steve Daniel. And welcome again, Patrick. And thank you for your comments and your words of wisdom. We will work together and make it happen for the best, again, for the good of our community. And I always want to thank Dr. Whitcock for her guidance and her intelligence and her, I appreciate all that you do for the hospital, for providing quality health care for our people. Thank you.
And we can't leave Val out.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I want to thank,
We all wouldn't even be here
I
for
want to thank Val, of course, for all her hard work in putting together our board packet study, or packet, and also our COO, Karen Denton. And of course, I want to thank our legal counsel, Skip, for continuing to educate us on parliamentary procedures, Robert Rules of Order. Thank you very much. Okay, next scheduled meetings, our work study will be Wednesday, if this is still all correct, January 22nd, and I will not be here, but I think there is, yeah, thank you. Sorry. Affiliation work study is Thursday, February 13, 2020 at 4:30 to 6 p.m. East-West Conference Room. Monthly business meeting, which is going to be I think it's the second Thursday, February 13 as well, 2020, 6:30 p.m. East-West Conference Room. Do I hear anything else? Any other adjourn? Should we adjourn?
You can just call
Adjournment?
adjournment. You can just declare.
Honey, take this and hit it.
Meeting adjourned.
There you go.